everyone out there in Mandolin land, Mike Hedding here. We're back with classic bluegrass this week. We're going to work on a Monroe-style downstroke lick. So, Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass music, had a very unique style of mandolin playing that's, again, commonly referred to as Monroe-style. And he would do these type of downstroke licks on medium tempo or slower, bluesier numbers, and he would use all downstrokes. And I love these style of licks. They're super in your face. They're super aggressive. They kind of almost were the precursor to like the Chuck Berry rock and roll style of guitar playing too. So Monroe was a trendsetter. He set the stage for everyone else, and everyone was just trying to follow in his footsteps. And on this lesson, I'm going to show you the basics of how to play that arpeggio, how to do some of the downstrokes, how to get a little of the sound, playing real close to the bridge to get that sound that he got. I'm also going to show you how to move this lick around to different keys. So it's working out of our chop chord. So we can do it in A, we can do it in B flat, we can do it in B. I'm going to show you again how Monroe kind of would use open strings outside of the key to still play a similar lick, you know. Which again, theory-wise doesn't technically work, but Monroe just owned it, and he had that authority, and that's why he was so cool, I think, is because he just took a lick in his style and just owned it and made it his own. And I'm going to break all this down for you in this lesson. All right, here's Monroe-style downstroke lick number 3. All right, let's start breaking down this Monroe-style downstroke lick. Let's start by playing it in the key of G, and then I'll show you how to move it around to different keys. So it's basically going to work out of this bluegrass chop chord, is what you're going to want to think of. And let me show you first, we'll start by learning the arpeggio that we're going to use. So we're going to play open, low string, 4th fret on the low string, open D string, and then 5th fret on the D. So that's the arpeggio. It's a G arpeggio. So an arpeggio is just the notes that make up a G chord. So we have the 1, 3, and 5 notes of the scale. We won't get too much into the theory in this lesson, but basically there's 3 notes of the G major scale that make up the G major chord. And those notes are G, B, and D. And then we're going back up to a G again. And if we continue that pattern up, we got 2nd fret on the A string, which is our B. And then 5th fret, on the A string, 5th fret, that's our D. And then 3rd fret on the high E is our G again. So we're just walking up those notes, and I'm using all downstrokes with my right hand to start. And you could practice it with down and up too, just to get comfortable. But again, these Monroe-style downstroke licks are called downstroke licks because we're using all downstrokes with our right hand. So let's just practice going up and down those notes. You might have heard, again, that's kind of the start of a Monroe-style lick you might have heard. And we can add more notes in a second, we'll do that. And the other thing I like to do on these style lessons is I'll probably move my right hand pretty close to the bridge, right? You know, if I want a sweeter sound, I might play up here, kind of even on the fingerboard. And if I want that kind of harsher, bluesy sound, again, Monroe did this a lot, he'd play really close to the bridge. That's the basic lick, is we're just going to be kind of walking up and down those arpeggios. And again, mix them up in different orders. You can practice, you know, you don't have to go straight up and down. Just kind of see what you can come up with to get familiar with those positions. So the first thing you can do is add some basic slide. So I might slide into, for example, like the 4th fret, and then slide in right here. Start adding some of the other notes in the scale. You know, I might add this 3rd fret on the A string. That's a classic Monroe style lick. So I could walk up. I might also add this 1st fret on the high E string, which is an F note, stuff like. And again, you can play with the timing. You don't have to, you know, you can do longer or shorter licks. Just get used to these positions. That's a classic Monroe-style lick. You You can slide fast or slow. That's another thing you want to practice. So you could do, or here I'm sliding fast in the first one, more like a grace note, right? And then in the second version, I'm sliding slower. So you can practice with that. So first thing to do is just get used to going up and down. Your right hand has to move across the strings really quick, so that can be good practice. Just practice going up and down. You can practice, yeah, going all the way back down too. Something like that. Again, you just want to hear that kind of up and down movement. You can add one more note up here too if you want the 7th fret. So we're playing with that arpeggio, and the other thing I want you to really think about is everything is basically in Monroe style. A lot of times you're doing what's called playing out of the chord shape. So we're really thinking of this larger G chord here. That's what I want you to think of, because when we move it to a different key, it's going to be a lot easier to do if you think about it in terms of this larger shape, okay? So I'm just getting used to playing out of this shape. You know, you could even practice maybe doing some chops and then doing a little lick. You know, you basically, again, I think this style developed because Monroe, or you know, whoever was playing rhythm right before they wanted to do a little lick, right? So a lot of these playing out of the chord shapes, very similar in like Carter style guitar too, or finger picking guitar. You're playing out of the chord shape because you're basically going to be transitioning between rhythm and lead quickly. So you always want to keep it in terms of this larger chord shape. One more thing you can do is play like quarter note triplets. So instead of doing like triplet, 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 which would be 8th notes, you can do, so that'd be like triplet, triplet. So you're basically playing quarter note triplets. So that's something you can practice. So if you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8th note triplets would be a triplet, triplet. So you're getting 3 notes for each, what would take the place of an 8th note, right? Triplet, triplet. And in quarter note triplets, we're going triplet, triplet, triplet. So we're getting them for each quarter note, we're putting 3 beats instead of each 8th note. And that can be hard to kind of tab out and sometimes hard to feel. What I would do is just practice, you know, practice along with the recording. You'll hear Bill Monroe do this type of lick all the time. That kind of sound. Triplet, triplet, triplet. And I recommend counting it out. You can hear me counting it out very prominently, and that can help you practice it. If you can count it, usually you can play it. So, and that can get some really cool sounds just because it adds a lot of tension, right? If the band's going and you come in and go, you know, it's going to be very jarring to the audience and to the rhythm, which can be very cool. It creates a lot of tension. Bill Monroe was a master of rhythm, so he would throw all these interesting styles of rhythm and embed these rhythmic patterns in his right hand. You know, stuff like... So he's not just going... He's playing a very unique rhythm, and heavily accented too. Monroe was a master of accenting certain notes to give it a phrase some life and make it jump off the page. And these are things that are pretty hard to tab out, right? It's hard to get the feel of quarter note triplets from a tab. So this is something you really want to listen to and really, again, embed the counting in your head. So triple. And that's something you can practice. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect right off the bat. You got to try it. You got to throw some stuff at the wall to see what sticks first. Okay? So now we've got the basic thing down. And again, you can practice going up and down. It's really just working out of this arpeggio again. Because There's lots of variations on these licks, and I can't break them all down in the video. It would just take too long. But get used to these positions. You can even walk down. Something like that could sound cool. So that's some of the basics in G. Again, we're working out of this chop shape. So let me show you how to move it up to A. So let's move this whole shape up 2 frets to our A chord. And what I think was really cool about Bill Monroe is he basically just crowbar that same type of lick over a new chord, which I thought was really cool. Again, it doesn't necessarily work technically with the theory, but that's one thing that was so cool about Bill Monroe is he had his own style and he was going to play it one way or the other. So what I'll do here is play that similar lick and still use my open strings, even though they're not technically going to work with the harmonies of the notes in this key. So I would go. So I'm playing that similar lick, but I'm using my same open strings I would over my G chord. He would even do that sometimes in B flat or B, you know, or C. So again, he's basically taking a shape and an idea and just transposing it to the different chords, but not making the harmonic variations needed to make the lick note for note the same. He's basically just taking that idea and transposing it to a new key, which I thought was really cool. You can also do it kind of in like your lower chop position as well. Something like that. It's the same idea. You know, you're just doing it now over a C chord or a D chord. Something like that. Or so you can play with those ideas, and again, it doesn't have to be note for note. You can give it a similar flavor. Something like that, or still using the open strings, notice, even though I'm playing that over a D. And that takes a little practice to, again, get your ear used to that. And, again, kind of building up your confidence to play some notes outside of the scale. I would do that a lot in a song that we play in my band in B flat. I might do that lick. Or something like that. Again, just working out of these shapes. So there's tons of ideas and valuable material you can mine out of these positions. And again, the goal is to always stay in your shape so you can go right back to chopping, right? So give that some practice. Try moving it around. You know, if it feels like a big stretch down here, the other thing you can do is start up here. You know, it'll be less of a stretch up here because the frets are smaller and you can move it down as you get it down. But again, do your same thing. Try the half note or quarter note triplets. And again, you could start with triplets too and then go into the regular eighth notes. You could go like something like that. So you can play with the timing of these phrases too. You know, I'm just trying to get you started with these positions and started doing your downstrokes as well. Last thing you could do is just practice just like your right hand. Because doing all downstrokes, it takes a lot of practice staying relaxed, right? So you really want to avoid doing like the death grip on your pick. You need to stay relaxed. You can't have your arm tense up. And that takes some practice to be able to get some power while staying relaxed, right? Because these licks are all about kind of authority, attitude, power. That's kind of how I think of it. You really got to kind of put it all out there. And these are licks that are good for building your confidence too, to like really, you know, put a lick out there, really sell it and kind of own it. Because if you kind of wimp your way through the lick, it's not going to have the flavor you want. These licks are aggressive. Again, they're played back by the bridge, so it has a really harsh sound. But it fits those old bluesy bluegrass songs so perfectly, okay? So that's what I want you to practice with these downstroke licks. Eventually, you can also transition these licks to more picking, stuff like that you might hear in other classic Bill Monroe songs. So again, a lot of these positions can be used with all downstroke picking, or eventually up and down picking as well. So these positions are really good practice, one for doing your downstroke bluesy licks, but also eventually for doing up and down picking on faster songs. Because remember, with downstroke only picking, you're definitely going to hit a speed wall. So you can't do all downstroke picking on a super fast song, or at least I can't. I don't think Bill Monroe could either, too. So there's going to be a point where you're going to have to switch from all downstroke picking to down and up picking if the speed hits a certain point. So these downstroke licks work really well for slower, bluesier songs, or kind of those mid-tempo bluegrass bounce songs. So again, remember that kind of in your back pocket too, that, you know, these, to do all downstroke only solos, there's going to be a maximum speed level you're going to reach. And part of that does have to do with staying relaxed, which you want to work on, but there's also just going to be a natural limit to how fast you can just do downstrokes, right? Because you're losing half of your speed when you go to all downstrokes because you're wasting that up pick. So just remember that. Use these on medium tempo or medium tempo or slower songs. They'll work better. But you want to practice staying relaxed. Make it really rhythmic. And just see what you can come up with. Again, I think if you start going up and down those notes, it just has a natural Monroe style if you've listened to Monroe-Style Mandolin. And if you haven't, I'd really encourage you to check it out. Monroe-Style Mandolin, the father of bluegrass, Bill Monroe, he kind of set the standard for everyone else, and everyone was just kind of following in his footsteps after that. All right, hopefully that helps you out. All right, good luck.